What's up, everyone? So I'm super late on this week's VOD review, but good that I finally got around to it. As always, I'm just gonna quickly go over my team, and then we'll go straight into the matches. If I sound a little tired, it's because I'm doing this really quite late at night, so I'll just jump right into it, and hopefully we'll get this banged out before I get too tired. So this week I wanted to try a size spam team, or I wanted to try something different than my usual, tailwind hyper aggressive teams that I usually build. So I decided to go pretty hard on the Trick Room mode on this team. I originally had Chen-Pao over Ursuluna Blood Moon, but it ended up being quite a bit better with Ursuluna Blood Moon. But I think overall I didn't love this team, honestly, and you'll see why as I go over the matches, but it definitely had some big weaknesses and holes in the team, despite it looking alright on paper, I think. But Ndidi Armourouge is a very classic duo there. I chose Armourouge over Hatterene for my Expanding Force user because I was pretty worried about Incineroar, honestly. Hatterene has Dazzling Gleam, which in hindsight is probably enough to hit KO most Incineroars, I think. But I really liked the idea of being able to just have a button that deletes Incineroar, and it gives me a special attack boost as well, which is, I can pretty safely click Expanding Force and Heat Wave. But as you'll see later, slotting Meteor Beam in over something like Wide Guard or Protect ended up being pretty bad for certain matchups. Ndidi's pretty standard. I decided to go with Psychic Seed over Rocky Helmet because Mungus has the Rocky Helmet and is a better user of it, in my opinion. And the Psychic Seed actually does make Ndidi very hard to knock out in one round, basically. Between max physical defense investment and the Psychic Seed boost, it's pretty bulky. I decided to run Dazzling Gleam over a Psychic type move here, just so I had something to chip away Focus Sash from Chen-Pao and Chi-Yu, even though the Psychic type attack would obviously do way more damage. Terra Grass is just really nice to be able to redirect Urshifu Rapid Strike stuff and stop me from getting spored. And yeah, the rest of it's pretty standard. So Mungus Iron Hands was the other duo that I wanted to try out. It's a pretty classic duo from the earlier regulations. I think Amoonguss is pretty... I think both these Pokemon are kind of underrated. I mean, they're obviously very good, but they've definitely fallen off compared to past regulations. But I figured I'd give them a try. They're both pretty darn good in Trick Room. Very slow, bulky Pokemon. And Iron Hands was... despite me canceling my own Fake Out with Psychic Terrain, it still managed to be quite a nice, stable presence on the team. I think maybe since I'm running Psychic Terrain on this team, I mean, there are a lot of mons I would change around, but maybe a different Iron Hand set would work. Like, I could replace Fake Out and go with, a Swords Dance set or something like that. But yeah, I mean, Amoonguss and Iron Hand's pretty standard here. I was debating between Assault Vest and Clear Amulet, but I ended up going with the classic Assault Vest since I wasn't too worried about my Incineroar matchup between Armourouge, Terrifier, Mungus, Ursuluna, and Ogerpon. I had a good amount of things to get around it, and I wasn't too worried about that, so that's why I ended up doing that. The last two slots were kind of flex slots. Ursuluna Blood Moon was a late addition, but I ended up really liking this Pokemon as the addition to my team. And in general, I think it's just actually quite good. And I think people are really starting to catch on to that with people starting to even use it on Tailwind teams, even though the base speed is so low. You're starting to see a lot of heavy speed investment. Ursaluna's running around. Ursaluna Blood Moon specifically. But yeah, it was a really great Pokemon to have on this team. I think if you're running any Trick Room mode, this is just a really good Pokemon to have in general. And Ogerpon Wellspring was didn't quite fit my Trick Room team, but it ended up being quite useful. Just having another form of redirection and something to really just kind of pop off in the late game once my Trick Room ended. Terra Water plus Ivy Cudgel was just really nice to be able to KO stuff. And yeah, pretty standard set here. I decided to run, well, I actually really messed up my EV spread here. So this is actually the EV spread that I ended up with in game, but this is not really what I wanted. So you'll probably, I retrained the Ogerpon, so you'll probably see what the EVs were later. But that's enough about the team. So I'll just go do the matches now. So this was a really bad matchup for me, and I think like it plays out almost worse than what I even thought. But even on paper, looking at Anthony's team, I was really worried about this matchup. I pretty much resigned myself to the fact that I would just be coin flipping to try and win that way, because you know, his team naturally outspeeds mine, so I have to get Trick Room up, and that means that if I guess wrong, let's say if Sinistcha comes in and clicks Trick Room, then you know, I'm basically just coin flipping on whether I get the speed control in my favor, because without it, it's actually very hard to win this. I have some tools to sort of buy some space between like Fake Out, Rage Powder, and Follow Me, but what I actually didn't even consider was the fact that Reggie Draco plus Chiyu, which you'll see in games 1 and 3, but I really wasn't expecting Reggie Draco to just do as much damage as it did. So that's definitely my mistake on this matchup in particular, because looking at the team, I was really like focused in on the Sinistcha. I knew he wasn't going to bring Salamence, and I wasn't super worried about Iron Boulder either, so I was just so focused on the Urshifu, Sinistcha, Chiyu, I think. I didn't even really consider Reggie Draco. I was actually more focused on the Chiyu and Sinistcha than anything. So, I mean, that was my game plan going into it. But again, I severely underestimated the Reggie Draco damage. And I think I brought, well, hold on, let's see. In the back, I brought... Yeah, so I brought Ursaluna as my secondary sweeper, and I realized I really wanted Ogerpon because I didn't really have a good answer to Urshifu otherwise, so I kind of had to bring it for that. But yeah, I was really focused on the Chiyu, which ended up being half the problem, but this Reggie Draco Chiyu leaves really... yeah, I really did not expect it to do as much damage as it did. So I think my thinking here was that I would just follow me the Dark Pulse and then get a Trick Room up, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yeah, I tried to follow me a Dark Pulse and just um, get a Trick Room up, but again, I did not expect the Dragon Energy to just one hit KO my Armor Rouge, because I did invest, like, it's like 156 HP and 100 special defense, but yeah, that was definitely a really bad plan in hindsight. Um, Terra Fire is interesting here. I mean, like, it does end up doing more damage to my DD, but I think he even said it, which is that he forgot about Flash Fire. So, yeah, I mean, this start is obviously extremely bad. I think I just surrender immediately, right? Yeah, so I quickly realized that it was even worse than I anticipated. So I realized I really needed Iron Hands to deal with, to stop at least one of them. So hopefully my plan was to fake out the Regidraco and try to get Trick Room up. But in hindsight, well, like, he could double protect the fake out, but that does give me a free Trick Room. So I think in hindsight, this actually isn't the worst plan. Like, Iron Hands plus Armors was probably the play against this team. Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't know what other options I could really do against Chi Reggie Draco. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible I could do, like, Terra Water Ogerpon plus Iron Hands lead. Like, Ogerpon gets a shot into Chi probably, and then I fake out the. I mean, it's really hard. Like, even right now, it's hard to even consider. Like, I guess I fake out Chi and then try to get any amount of chip damage into Regidraco, but yeah, I mean, realistically, this is probably my best chance. But he did end up trying to do something else, which was the Sinistra plus Urshifu lead. So I think the obvious thing here is, like, who's gonna click Trick Room, because I think I end up not going for Trick Room here, which I believe he also predicts. I think he just goes for Machagacha or something like that. Oh, I remember that. There's a burn in this game that potentially mattered quite a bit, but I think realistically, like, this matchup is just so horrendously bad that I'm not really sure what I really could have done about this. So he does do Terra Water to ensure the Heat Wave doesn't just blow him out, and then fine taking the fake out here, which is understandable. And I believe he is running more speed on this Sinistra to outspeed extreme speed users. This burn right here is pretty nice, but I think it ends up not mattering as much as we think, because what happens here is I take a full damage Surging Strike switching in Ndidi, or sorry, a half damage Surging Strike switching into Ndidi. But I think my plan was to Terra Grass this thing anyway. And I believe my Terra this game actually doesn't matter as much as I thought. But we'll see how it plays out. I can't quite remember because this was like a full week ago at this point. So yeah, Rage Powder's pretty standard here. Yeah, so I would have taken double the damage right here. Yeah, I mean, I guess the burn did matter, because I would have had less HP to work with for sure there. I still think Indeedee, if I Terra Grass it, probably lives another Surging Strikes, but it's really hard to say. But because it was burned and it did less damage, I ended up not needing to burn the Terra here, so yeah, I'm pretty free to click the Trick Room here, I think. Well, I say free, but he ends up reading it this turn, I remember. And in hindsight, I'm not really sure why I clicked Wild Charge into Urshifu. Like, I think I always should just KO the Sinistcha here. Yeah. Target down the Sinistcha, get rid of it to get rid of the Trick Room / Rage Powder threat that it has. So yeah, good read by him. So yeah, my Trick Room gets negated. Regidrago comes in, which is really bad for me here. I believe I end up just realizing that I need to sack here because Psychic Train's still up, so I can't really refresh my my Fake Out. So I think I just send a move. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So this does get a... Oh, Iron Hands lives with 1 HP. So that actually was pretty big. I don't know the damage roll on that, but getting any amount of chip damage down on the Regidrago severely hinders the Dragon Energy damage. So lucky burn earlier, I think, and probably lucky damage roll there to live. I'm not sure. So at this point, I think Regidrago is faster than Armorage and just one-hit KOs me, but I do take a KO onto the Regidrago, I think. Or at the very least, I get it down to 1, which really hinders it. Yeah. And then... yeah, Regidrago's at -2. And I realized this game that I don't really have a good Terra. Like, I may as well just Terra Ursaluna here. Like, Iron Hands is about to go down. So, I may as well just burn the offensive Terra in case he does a switch of some kind. Maybe sack the Regidrago, or not sack the Regidrago, switch it out, refresh it, and get it back in at not -2 for a KO. But regardless, this ends up working out, I think. Yeah, I think I remember now. Because I get burned here, which is kind of unfortunate. Hyper Voice picks up a double KO. And then the end game, it is Urshifu versus Iron Boulder. And I thought for sure I was gonna die. Because this is attack boosted, I assume Adamant Mighty Cleave. I was just like, I'm dead. There's no way I survive this. But I guess I just did and one-hit KO it, which is really insane, honestly. I really didn't think I would live that. So, honestly, that was just like a pure luck game, honestly. I think the real luck was not quite the burn, I think, but what was the other damage roll to live on the Dragon Energy. I think that actually made a big difference. But again, this is kind of what happens in the third game. Is I think I just get rolled by the Regi Draco Chiyu. So let's see. So yeah, this is a really not great situation, I think, because in hindsight, I should really have just fake out the Chiyu and then hope that the Dragon Energy doesn't kill me. But yeah, I think if Ready Draco Dragon Energy kills me, even as a double target there, then I think there's just literally nothing I can do. Like, I'm pretty sure this is just actually unplayable for my team comp. So, yeah, I think at this point I'm kind of like, there's no way, man. Yeah, Mungus protects. I guess I could have done Terra Fire here. Terra Fire the Mungus? Yeah, Terra Fire or Mungus, get a Spore off, maybe. That's probably my best bet. But if I take too much damage, I'm pretty sure I just die to Urshifu in the back. The issue here is I have no way of getting Trick Room up, so I really have to rely on the Mungus or Iron Hands taking a hit and buying some space. And realistically here, with Indeedee plus a Mungus and Armor's already dead, I don't really have the damage to win this. Like, Iron Hands is going to die very soon. And then I just have a Mungus plus Indeedee. And there's really not much that I can do. So I should have Terrified the Mungus last turn, I think. But yeah, this Dragon Energy does way too much damage to me now, so... yeah. Pretty big oversight on my part. Really underestimating the Regidraco damage, so yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, I think there were a few avenues I could have maybe done something on, but it didn't look too great of a matchup, to be honest. So this matchup ends up, I was not super worried about this matchup, but there's a couple things that end up really bothering me, which is, first of all, the Hisuian Zora with Eviolite is actually pretty annoying. And the reason it is because turn 1, this Indeedee Armorage usually does not do any damage. Doesn't really threaten any KOs usually. And even if it does, it's usually pretty slow. So the turn that I spend getting Trick Room up actually is very easy to get a Snarl off. And I think Snarl is really, really good against high spam teams. Stuff like AV Entei, AV Raging Bull that can tank a hit and then get the Snarls down. It's really, really annoying to deal with for high spam teams. Because you're pretty much all in on your damage being the expanding force. And so getting any special attack drops onto the attacker is really useful. Because Indeedee's not really putting out any offensive pressure. It's really there to just enable Armorage and its teammates. So, and in this lead, my thinking is like, I just go the standard here because there's no big threat. But what actually ends up being a big problem is Sylveon's base speed being 60 is actually below Armorage and Indeedee's. I think Armorage is 75 and Indeedee is like 80, 85 or something. And even though I'm minus speed nature, my armor is not slow enough to underspeed the Sylveon. Because this, I believe, is max HP, max special attack Sylveon with no speed investment. So, it ends up being quite a bad problem, which is why in game 2 you'll see me really try to change up the game plan, basically. And it does not work out very well. So yeah, Indeedee gets to redirect the Thunderbolt. Hyper Voice, not that much damage, but it does get the Throat Spray off, which is really where things start getting kind of dicey. So Trick Room goes up here. And realistically, I don't think that her team really had a good shot at stopping me from getting Trick Room up, which is why I kind of talked about Snarl in the beginning as being the main way. Like maybe like a Sylveon plus Hisuian Zoro would lead to just get Snarl pressure down, and then Sylveon at least gets to get some free damage in and get a Throat Spray activation. So in my head, I'm just like, okay, well, I just run the game plan here. Like, there's not really much they can do. But the Sylveon moving first is actually kind of bad for me because my Armorage ends up taking a lot of damage, and the Sylveon actually ends up living this Terra Psychic Helping Hand Expanding Force, which is honestly insane to me. Like, I know Sylveon has a ton of special defense as a base stat, and this is full HP Sylveon, but I did not think that Terra Psychic Helping Hand max special attack Armorage would not KO here. And this is why this ends up being a big issue for me and something that sticks in my mind, because right now I don't have really a great play, because the Hyper Voice will pick up a KO on Armor, so I try to preserve it here by switching into Indeedee. Or sorry, into Amoonguss. Because Amoonguss will definitely underspeed it. I'm pretty sure Iron Hands, Amoonguss, and Ursaluna Blood Moon will all underspeed it. But, yeah, this ends up revealing itself as Hisuian Zoroa. And I get a Dazzling Gleam off because the Helping Hand and Follow Me wouldn't have really helped. So, my thought process there was to chip a Jianpao Focus Sash, but it being Hisuian Zora means that it just gets some chip damage here. And here I have a very free Spore into this slot. There's no Protect on this thing, and there are no Spore immunity switch-ins on her team. They would have to have Terrored already, and they've already burnt the Terror on the Sylveon, so this Spore is always going to take, like, it's always going to hit something. Even if it switches out, there's whatever comes in is eaten asleep. So Sylveon gets a Terror Blast off, which is, it does KO Indeedee, but at this point I kind of want Indeedee off the field, so it's not that bad for me. I probably would have clicked Hyper Voice here. I think it's just stronger in general, but getting the KO onto Indeedee works anyway. But I do get Blood Moon Ursaluna in here, and I realize again that I have no reason not to keep clicking Spores, I think. I could even, I don't really know, yeah, I think Spore is definitely the way here because Ursaluna is going to move first, and this covers for any, like, switch in, I guess, so. So this is kind of where the game 1 really scared me a lot with the Sylveon. And it kind of sets up game 2 to be really disastrous for me because I really overthink on positioning and worry about the Sylveon too much, when in reality I can just as long as I get Trick Room up and get some really decent damage off with at least one expanding force, I'm pretty sure Ursulina Blood Moon can clean up most of the endgame. Or as you can see, the Amoonguss just gets to fire off spores. Jianpao comes in, but at this point Jianpao can't really do anything. Thanks to... I mean, I could either do Rage Powder or click Pollen Puff plus an attack here, and that would be fine, honestly. Because Pollen Puff gets rid of the Focus Sash. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of game 1. Because this is pretty much like an unwinnable situation at this point. I would like to see an Ice Spinner or Icicle Crash instead of a Sacred Sword there. It's just going to do more damage to Ursaluna. I'm not even sure Sacred Sword kills there, but yeah, Ice Spinner probably would have been the choice. And at this point, I do think you should be running Ice Spinner over Icicle Crash on Jianpao. Even though the Ice Spinner makes contact and can get in trouble with Rocky Helmet recoil, it's just so important to be able to remove Psychic Terrain in particular in this meta. Not because of Ndidi Armourouge, but really because Ndidi Iron Crown has become a lot more prevalent. So it's just a really nice tool to have, and it's more consistent because of the accuracy. You might miss some KOs on bulky Flutter mains, but I think the trade-off of being able to eliminate terrain is really worth it. So going into game 2, again, the Sylveon really scared me, which is why I end up switching it up here. So I think my plan here is that I can immediately pressure with Ursaluna and Ndidi, and Amoonguss was still very good last game, and Ndidi is I would say Armourouge kind of needs Ndidi, but Ndidi doesn't necessarily need Armourouge. Like, Ndidi on its own actually offers quite a lot still. It gives redirection, it gives helping hand, and being able to block Fake Out, Thunderclap, Sucker Punch is really nice. So it's just a pretty solid Pokemon. So I feel comfortable not bringing the Armourouge here, but I think it quickly turns bad because they end up leading Chien-Pao Armourouge, which is a good adaptation on their part to stop the Psy Spam from going out. But I believe this Chien-Pao ends up being the Hisuian Zorua, which gets a taunt off into Ndidi. And this is where I mentioned that I overthink it, because in hindsight, I can always just get Trick Room up automatically by leading Ndidi Armourouge. Like, there's no way for them to stop it. It's literally impossible, I'm pretty sure. Other than like a Hyper Voice crit, maybe. Even then, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I would have to calc, but I end up playing this really badly, in my opinion. Like, I try to protect the Fake Out and just greed a Trick Room up here, because Flare Blitz plus Ice Spinner / Icicle Crash probably wouldn't KO me, but yeah, getting taunted here is really bad. This is really, really bad. So I end up having to pivot, and one of my back mons is Iron Hands, which, now that it doesn't have Fake Out, has lost a good bit of its immediate pressure. And here I have to just go for a move. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna eat a Snarl here or a Flare Blitz, both of which is really annoying. but I can't really let the Zora get too many snarls off. So good snarl here. Means Ensign actually ends up tanking the Earth power here, I believe. Yes. At this point, it's really bad, honestly. Like, I had to Terrifier to cover for a Flare Blitz angle, and just trying to get a Spore into the Zora to stop the snarls. And like, it's quite bad here because if I switch Iron Hands into a Parting Shot, then it's like really bad because I have to switch again, basically. So I tried to go back into Indeedee, but as you probably can guess, Indeedee plus Amoonguss has literally zero offensive pressure. Like, the only reason I'm doing this, or the reason that you would ever do this, is just to preserve your Pokemon in the back the best you can. But they go with a really nice taunt here, so I don't get the Spore off. I get Parting Shotted anyway, so that they can pivot out of the switch, and I just did, and get a better matchup into it. And this is really showcasing the problem with relying on Psychic Terrain to block Prankster Taunt specifically, is that if you just have normal taunt users, they can pretty freely click into things like Amoonguss like this. So yeah, at this point it's like I'm in such a bad position at this point. Like, the Palm Puff's not doing any damage, so I try to just get chipped down with Dazzling Gleam, I think. Or I just try to get a Desperation Trick Room up. Which at this point is just like grasping at straws. Like, of course the taunt's going to come out, and of course this move isn't going to really do anything. I guess the most it's doing is I get a heal off into Indeedee, which brings it back up to full, and I get to stall out the Psychic Terrain for my Iron Hands to get a Fake Out off. But I also let Sylveon get a free Throat Spray boost. So, I mean, like, so many things have gone wrong at this point, and I think at this point I was just kind of like checked out of this game, to be honest. It was really, they made all the correct decisions on, it may seem like obvious plays, like clicking taunt into the support Pokemon each turn, but that's kind of what you have to do sometimes with a lot of these situations, where you just have to make the obvious move, because you will literally like instantly lose if you don't get the taunt off, right? Because if Trick Room comes up, then everything goes to shit, basically. So, yeah, Zora really pulled its weight here. Like, Snarl plus Taunt really just shut this down really badly. So, I think at this point, the game's pretty much over. Like, I lose my Amoonguss. Iron Hands can finally come in, but like, what's it really going to do? I'm going to get a Fake Out off into Sylveon, or just take some damage into Zora, which isn't even going to really KO it. And the Will-O-Wisp could just immediately cripple the Iron Hands, so I think at this point I'm stuck using Dazzling Gleam, right? So I just kind of have to keep going for it, and then I think I end up clicking Wild Charge here or something. No, just Fake Out. Really good detect by them. Scouting the Fake Out. So yeah, like, they made all the quote-unquote obvious but like very much correct plays. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you really just have to follow the game plan and just not overthink it. That's not to say that you shouldn't make hard reads, because hard reads are like inherently a part of the game. But you have to kind of recognize what moves will instantly lose you the game, and you have to kind of be forced to counter that sometimes. Because if they call your bluff, you literally just lose off of it. So, and that right there, you definitely should click Will-O-Wisp in Iron Hands. Like there's no follow me pressure, and Will-O-Wisp pretty much instantly cripples the Iron Hands. So, I mean, you still get Bitter Malice off, I guess. So I get a Helping Hand Wild Charge into Zora, which doesn't kill. And Sylveon gets a free Hyper Voice off, and like, it's just honestly terrible at this point. Like, even right there, you can see that my Iron Hands is actually faster than the Sylveon. So it's just another thing to consider under Trick Room that I didn't even think about, which is the fact that Sylveon could even underspeed it. So I guess I definitely tunneled way too hard in on one, Sylveon being too much of a threat in game 2, and in game 1 I didn't even consider other options other than there's no way they can stop my main game plan, and the lack of research there on the speeds ended up biting me. Or not biting me, because I ended up winning anyway, and it ends up being not that big of a deal, but it ends up like affecting the way I'm processing decisions and stuff. So I think in game 3 I decide like I can't be that scared of Sylveon anymore. I just have to run the game plan, and even if the Trick Room comes up and Sylveon gets attacks off first, I pretty much need the Trick Room up. Like, I just have to have it, because 5 of my 6 Pokemon are quite slow. And even if Armourouge gets crippled, then Ursaluna still can clean up in the back. So this is a pretty neat play by them, actually, because I think one of these ends up being a Zora. It might be the Sylveon. But yeah, regardless, follow me, Trick Room. There's literally nothing that they can do about this. It being a Zora ends up being kind of annoying because it gets a free Snarl / Taunt off. I don't remember which one it goes for. Icicle Crash. So yeah, it does get a Snarl off, and that is the correct play. Getting Snarls into Armourouge is really important. I do get the Trick Room up, and so I believe next turn I can actually do... Yeah, Meteor Beam helps to offset the Snarl damage, and I should be able to get a KO into Chenpao. Honestly, I would... Well, I guess with this you lock Chenpao out of getting any damage off. But it can protect here, which it might. I think it might do. So let me see. So I think if I'm them, I click Protect, Chenpao, and then Taunt or Snarl again. Taunt would be really nice to get rid of the Indeedee from doing too much. Oh, I forgot they didn't know about Psychic Terrain until this match, I believe, or the one before that. So, yeah, that is a knowledge check there that you just have to learn, because It is very important. Um, but yeah, I think if I'm them, I click protect plus snarl. Getting a -2 on the armors really cripples its damage. And preserving the focus sash on Chinpao is really nice because it forces me to click Dazzling Gleam within DD to get the last hit in. Instead of going for a helping hand or follow me, so Sylveon comes out, and there is somewhat of a worry here because we're halfway through the Trick Room turns, and I can't really switch into Ursaluna. So at this point, I'm just gonna take my 2 Mons going down here to Hyper Voice so that I can get an Ursaluna with 2 more turns of Trick Room. And what that does is it lets me... it ensures that Ursaluna gets at least 1 turn to get an attack off because one of them will be eaten by Protect. And then the other one I can freely click Blood Moon or Hyper Voice and get rid of the Sylveon. So I just take sacking the Pokemon here. And this is something that you need to consider against Psy-Spam teams. Especially those with Iron Crown. And against Ben, you'll see that with the Iron Crown plus Hatterene. So yeah, this is kind of like a... I'm looking to sack my Mons, but getting extra damage off with Expanding Force is definitely nice. And it just actually straight up KOs Zora, so that's very nice to have. Ensign comes in, and I believe Ensign has the same base speed as Sylveon, so I believe I get double knocked out here. And there's no world where I switch this, honestly, so... Well, I mean, there isn't a world where I double switch, because what could happen in the endgame is I have DD armors, which actually are faster than this duo, but I think the safer play is just to sack them and let them go down here. And you get Ursaluna in for 1 last turn of Trick Room. So the Sylveon can protect, but the fact that I have Ogerpon out means that things are really bad for them at this point. Because Ursaluna getting an attack off here means that I can click whatever into the Incineroar slot. And Sylveon's never really threatening me that much in this endgame because Ogerpon is faster. So I think... Yeah, I mean, this is a fine play. Like, Incineroar will go down here. I'm trying to think, in hindsight... Well... No. I think in hindsight, maybe I protect the Ogerpon and get one last... Just get an Earth Power into Incineroar to knock it out, I think. Because this is the last turn of Trick Room, I believe. So, yeah, what I did is definitely the wrong play. I think I always Earth Power into Incineroar and protect with Ogerpon, because what this ensures is that if Sylveon protects, then I pick up the knockout onto Incineroar no matter what, because it doesn't have protect. And then next turn, Trick Room is over, so Ogerpon will outspeed everything. So that is definitely the correct move in hindsight, I think. And even if Sylveon decided not to protect there, Ogerpon protecting itself means that we have the full HP Ogerpon going into the end game, where it has a speed advantage, so that's just usually a win there. So Good stuff there from Astter. I think they got kind of knowledge checked on the size spam stuff, but in general, just remember if you don't have a way to stop the trick room from going up, the best you could do is getting those snarls down and even parting shot to some degree really dampen the expanding force user, which will probably be Hatterene, Iron Crown, whatever. So, and you do have 2 dark types there, so you can have some good expanding force switch-ins. So against Ben's team, let me take some water real quick. The addition of the Gallade is actually quite good. The wide guard really helps stabilize his trick room team so that they don't just get instantly blown out by spread moves, as we saw in the set versus Anthony with Reggie Draco plus Chiyu. And it's actually quite annoying to stop trick room from coming up against Gallade plus Ndidi, because you kind of have to coin flip on the wide guard plus follow me, or not plus follow me, either wide guard plus trick room or follow me plus trick room. So he at least gives himself an out for that scenario that just kind of murdered me. But in this matchup, the danger here is that I never want trick room to come up because Hatterene underspeeds all of my Pokemon. So if Trick Room ever comes up with Hatterene positioned, then I pretty much instantly lose. So the Amoonguss is really nice to put Spore Pressure immediately out on the field. He does have several Spore immunities between Amoonguss, Terragrass, Gallade, and Terragrass Ndidi, I believe. But at the very least, I get to force a Terra out. Let's see here. Yeah, and I can count on Ogerpon to be a pretty stable presence here, because if Trick Room isn't going up, or even if it is, I get a special defense boost, and the Ivy Cudgels are doing a lot of damage, so... let me see here. What do I end up targeting? I think I think the Terra Water Ogerpon here has a ton of value. It just puts on a lot of immediate pressure. Like, I don't think it's gonna one-hit KO Ndidi, but it can one-hit KO Gallade here. And what I expect to happen is the Terra Grass for the Gallade. But he ends up going for Psycho Cut here, which I think is honestly fine. So Ivy Cudgel does about half, but I sack my Amoonguss, but it's not a bad situation because Trick Room is still not up, and Ndidi now is threatened very hard by this duo right here. And this is kind of where I can kind of pin them, I think, because he wants Trick Room to come up. So again, this is the follow me plus Trick Room or wide guard plus Trick Room angle. And I have ways to get around both of that, I think. So tearing the Gallade here is also not a terrible option, because even though he does have resistances, he doesn't have great ways to hit Armourouge. So yeah. Ndidi does follow me, so Ivy Cudgel picked up a KO here. And then the single target expanding force definitely does enough damage here. So no Trick Room comes up, and Hatterene comes in. So the thing with this is I still have speed advantage here over both of these mons. So I'm basically thinking like Ursaluna, the obvious play here is for Ursaluna to protect. So if I double up into Hatterene, this covers for protect plus Trick Room, I believe is what the thought process is. Which I believe he ends up doing, but I can't quite remember. Okay, he goes for double protect, so he scouts it out here, gets the guts burn off. So good play from him, but it also means that next turn the Ursaluna is open, basically, so he would have to get a double protect, I think. I don't exactly remember what happened, so I'm just kind of going through this turn by turn as if I was playing the match. So what I just did, I think, is not super great. I mean, I'd have to run the calcs, but maybe Terra or Psychic Expanding Force always kills Ursaluna here, I'm not sure. He has Terra Ghost here. I think he just had an extra Terra, so maybe get rid of a water weakness, but I target it into Hatterene, and Expanding Force I think takes both KOs here. Okay, not both KOs. I'm trying to think, like, I probably did make the right call there, because that ensures that Trick Room never gets up, and Ursaluna and Armors are always faster than regular Ursaluna in this endgame. So that's pretty much it for game one. It's funny, the whole game, Trick Room never came up, which is beneficial for me, and it was part of the game plan for me, but yeah, I didn't really expect him to go for the early Amoonguss KO, but it ended up being fine for me because it ensured that Trick Room didn't go up. Okay, so game two, Armor is not a bad lead here because it beats a lot of like Iron Crown. Even if Psychic Terrain isn't up, I can still fire Meteor Beams off, which is really nice. To get a special attack boost, and then the Heat Wave and Expanding Force start becoming a big threat. So he does go with the Iron Crown lead here. So yeah, the danger here is yeah, I have to Terra or Protect Amoonguss or it dies immediately. So getting a Terra Fire Spore off into Iron Crown ensures that well, yeah, here I kind of have to let Armors either tank a hit or go down. Or tank a hit or switch, which I think I end up just letting it go down here. I can't remember if Trick Room actually comes up. Oh, it doesn't go down here because Expanding Force doesn't do enough, right? Yeah. So this ends up being an interesting game because I think halfway through the battle I realized that the danger and probably what he had set up is that you lead the Iron Crown, and with the Ndidi pressure, you can either let Iron Crown run rampant or you can get the Trick Room up for a Hatterene sweep in the back. Which I think he does have Hatterene in the back here, but it ends up being okay in the end game, I believe. So getting the Spore off into the Iron Crown really slows everything down. So even though I burn the Terror and take a ton of damage, I'm okay with this, really. Yeah, so I get another Spore off because we're in Trick Room now. And we get a Heat Wave, I believe. Yeah. So this next turn, I think it's this turn where I'm like, okay, so Hatterene is probably in the back here. So whatever I have needs to be able to beat it. And I don't really have a good switch right now necessarily. So I think what I can do is I can either swap Ogerpon in or Paul and Puff my own armors. But I think Hatterene probably becomes a big threat in the end game for this. So I think honestly, Paul and Puff plus Heat Wave is probably the way to go, right? Yeah. And I think he's fine with this scenario because it lets him get in Hatterene under Trick Room, which underspeeds everything that I have. But I think I end up thinking in my head, like, my back two Pokemon have Protect, and there's definitely a world where I can stall this out because I have Protect and Moongus, and I have a full HP Armourouge. So living through this Hatterene, even though it seems really bad letting it get in under Trick Room here, I think I'm still okay with it. There's only 2 turns left, so going for a Protect here, and then I can kind of just do whatever with Armors. I think about reversing the Trick Room, honestly, but I think running it out naturally is actually the correct choice here. So he is going for the Terra Psychic Expanding Force, which ends up, I believe, barely missing the KO onto Armors with the Helping Hand here. Let's see. Yeah, just barely missing the KO there. I get my own Expanding Force off, which takes a KO, gets some decent chip into Hatterene. But the most important part is that Trick Room only has 1 turn left, and even though he has Ursaluna, I think in the end game here I always win this because Ogerpon and Ursaluna when they should always win against Ursaluna Hatterene. So I'm fine sacking both Mons here to an Expanding Force. He goes for a safe Protect to get, well, it probably doesn't matter quite in the end game. It doesn't matter actually, but I think there you're really in no danger of anything because the Expanding Force is always going to get a double knockout here. So getting, I believe this is Swords Dance Ursaluna. Getting a Swords Dance up probably would have been the play. But again, I think it doesn't matter here because since Ursaluna's faster than Ursaluna Blood Moon, I think I can always go for... yeah, I always go for Blood Moon into Hatterene plus Ivy Cudgel into Ursulina here. Ivy Cudgel won't KO, but it does enough damage, and the Blood Moon will always KO the Hatterene, so I think even maybe Hyrule always KOs. Probably not on Hatterene, honestly, so this is definitely the correct play for me. Just making sure that only one attack goes off, and in this scenario it can never be. If I let Expanding Force go off, it's the worst case scenario, so but yeah, it comes down to Ursulina Blood Moon versus Ursulina, and as Ben pointed out, Ursulina Blood Moon does have 2 more base speed points, so unless the IVs are really fucked up, then this is usually the win for the Blood Moon here. So yeah, that is it. So yeah, that's actually it for this week. There was a little bonus game here between Anthony and Astter, but I'm not going to go over it because they didn't actually finish the game because I believe Astter disconnected. But yeah, that's it for this week's matches. I really wasn't happy with the team this week, and also like, even though I went 2-1, I felt like I really had to struggle for my 2 wins. So I was just not really feeling the team after, well, first of all, realizing a huge weakness against Anthony's team, and then also realizing how hard I had to work to beat Astter and Ben. So, yeah, I think Side Spam definitely has a place in the meta right now, but my particular version was not really my thing. I think Ben's version has a better chance. Well, not maybe a better chance, but it has I think higher highs and not even lower lows, really. It's just, I guess my team has some more general use Pokemon, like they can function outside of Trick Room, like Iron Hands, Amoonguss, Ogerpon, but his Trick Room mode is a lot stronger, and he has options to cover the Trick Room mode's weakness, such as the Wide Guard Gallade. But yeah, that's about it. We did skip week 4 because, well, 1 because Astter couldn't make it, and 2 because we were something was going on that we wanted to stick around to watch. So we did skip week 4, but we will be back most likely next week with another round robin. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and I will see you all later.